During the coronavirus pandemic, Joe Biden criticized President Trump's China travel ban.
Hysterical xenophobia.
He was dead wrong. For 40 years, Biden's been wrong on China, supporting trade deals that destroy American jobs, giving China most favored nation status, letting China walk all over us.
The beautiful history we wrote together.
But Biden has never been more wrong than now. Joe Biden in the White House would be a deadly mistake.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Hello, welcome. It's Monday night. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. Let's get to it. I keep saying everything just keeps getting more backed up. So much news, so much information. I appreciate everybody joining on DLive, YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope, Twitter, same company. Soon to go over to BitChute. Really serious stuff that has been going on today. The president has had a conference and there was a shooting, so we will all get to see the conference today and from today. So the president is fine, thank God. Please keep the Secret Service and the president in prayer, and thank you to the Secret Service in general for their excellent work in protecting the president. And I know there's a lot of other shows going on, but that's okay. Let's kind of get to it. This is really interesting times, and so let's kind of see what's going on.
Thank you very much. I thought I'd start by talking about some mail-in voting that just was revealed, just the news. 500,000 incorrect absentee ballot applications were sent all across the state of Virginia, including to many dead people. This was an unprecedented mailing flub that's heightened concerns about the integrity of expanding mail-in voting and mail-in voting efforts. It's a disaster. All over Virginia, 500,000 votes. So that's something you have to think about. We don't want to have a rigged election, I know that. And you have to be very careful when you mention, as you constantly do, Russia, or you mention China, or you mention Iran, or others that attack our election system. And when you have this mail-in voting, it's very susceptible. It's something that can be easily attacked by foreign countries and by, frankly, Democrats and by Republicans. And I think that it's something you have to start thinking about very seriously. Our system's not equipped for it. The post office is not equipped for it. And people should vote like they did in World War I and World War II. And your numbers will be, in 90 days or less, your numbers will be very good, I think, much better on the coronavirus or the China virus. But it's something you have to look at and say, this is just crazy. This just came out, 500,000 incorrect ballot applications sent all over the state of Virginia to many people that weren't living. They had some sent to pets, dogs. This is what we're going to get into, and it's going to be a disaster. And it's going to be thought of very poorly. It's going to hurt our country. After our news conference Saturday night and the pro-growth announcement, pro-jobs, pro-health safety, executive orders, the stock market went up 358 points today. So we issued those executive orders, and the stock market went up 358 points today. It's quite a reaction. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 are now up 50% since March, 50%. Think if you had money in there, if you put your money in March, you're 50%. The NASDAQ index continues to set new records. It's been up over 14 times, new record in NASDAQ. And the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones are going to be, I mean, the way they're going, it looks like they're just about going to be topping records hopefully soon. Excuse me?
For those who did not see the press conference, we obviously didn't know what was going on, and they did cut the feed, and you had some of the reporters going to the windows. You've seen Secret Service in full gear around the windows, and that's kind of where it is right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Let me get some information here, folks. Let me get some information on what's going on. Please do not.
Well, I don't know who this guy is, but
Was shot by Secret Service. So we'll see what happens. And
come
yeah,
on,
did
really?
you have something?
Alright, hold on. Seem messed up again. I'll get. Oh, just a second, please. Let me get it back here. I do not know why it decided. Let me get her all straightened out for you. Okay. There we go.
No, there are no details. We just found out just now. It was outside of the White House, this area right over here, and they'll have details for you in a little while. Somebody is taken to the hospital. It seems that the shooting was done by law enforcement at that person, at the suspect. It was the suspect who was shot, and this just took place. A couple of people outside. I noticed a man named John Roberts, who you know very well. He reported that he heard shots. He was outside and he heard 2 shots. We don't know yet. We don't know. They're going to find
Do you know
that
if the
out.
individual said anything, sir, mentioned
We don't
your
know that
name,
yet,
anything
no.
like that? And
We
you
don't
can
know that
confirm
yet.
It was the Secret Service that did shoot this
It
suspect?
seems to be, yeah.
It seems to
It
be.
seems-
Where were you taking, Mr. President? Were you taking to the bunker?
No, we're taking just out over to the Oval Office.
What did he tell you so far?
Just told me when he came up, you pretty much saw it like I did. He said, "Sir, could you please come with me?" So you were surprised. I was surprised also. I think it's probably pretty unusual, but very, very professional people. They do a fantastic job, as you know. So it seems to me, it seems to be from what I was said, there was a shooting. It was law enforcement shot someone, seems to be the suspect, and the suspect is now on the way to the hospital. I can't tell you the condition of the suspect. There was nobody else injured. There was no other law enforcement injured. And I just want to, I will get onto the press conference, but I do want to thank Secret Service. They are fantastic. The job they do, from what I understand, the answer is yes.
He was armed, Mr. President?
That's what I understand. I don't know. You'll have to ask them.
With what type of weapon?
I don't know that, no.
Male or female
I
suspect?
don't know. You'll have to get, they'll have a detailed, maybe a briefing for you outside later. I don't know. I didn't ask that question. It might not have had anything to do with me. It might have been something else, but it was on the outside of the premises. The wall, the as you know, the fencing, especially the new fencing that they put up, is very powerful. But it was on the outside of the White House. Okay, and they'll have a full report. Secret Service in a little while will have a full report.
Are you rattled by this at all, Mr. President?
I don't know. Do I seem rattled? It's unfortunate that this is a world, but the world's always been a dangerous place. It's not something that's unique. The world has been, you look back over the centuries, the world has been a dangerous place, very dangerous place, and it will continue, I guess, for a period of time.
Differently about your personal safety inside the White House?
No, I feel very safe with Secret Service. They're fantastic people. They're the best of the best, and they're highly trained. I don't know if anybody got to walk outside, but there were a lot of terrific-looking people ready to go if something was necessary. People at the highest level of law enforcement. There's nobody like these people. So they just wanted me to step aside for a little while just to make sure that everything was cleared outside, because it was right in this area. So,
Come back, Mr. President. Why did you decide after that? Because obviously it created a lot of commotion. What made you decide to come back and continue the briefing?
well, I didn't even think about not coming back. I said, am I able to go back? And they said, you'd have to wait a little while. I waited a little while, as you know, in the Oval Office area. And I said, can I get back now? And they said, yes. And they have a lot of fortification outside, just in case. But it was one person. Okay?
You said the shooting was outside. How far away from the
Well,
White
they're
House?
going to be giving you a full briefing in a little while.
Far from the White House, or was it right in front
I
of
can
that
only
fence?
tell you they're going to give you a briefing. It was outside of the premises, near the fence, but outside of the
But it was near the
premises.
fence. So pretty
Near the-
close to here.
Yeah, pretty close. So I was telling you that the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 are now 50% above the March level. NASDAQ is setting new records. It's already broken the record despite the situation of having the China virus. We have new jobs are rising and unemployment is falling faster than nearly anyone thought. And over the past 3 months, we've created over 9 million jobs. And that's a record, a 3-month record. If you add it up, it's a 3-month record by far. And we've beaten expectations by 12 million. We're 12 million above expectations, which is pretty remarkable. Today we had great reports on new job openings, and there's clearly a housing boom, which has been incredible numbers in both housing and an automobile boom. We've rarely seen anything like it, and it's going on right now in America. Inventories are at rock bottom. Used car sales are at record levels, and we will have rebuilt. We're doing a rebuilding like nobody's ever seen. It's a big plus for manufacturing and construction. So construction's getting close to record territory. Manufacturing's doing very well. The car companies are doing great. Very happy for Michigan, the state of Michigan. We have a lot of car companies moving in. A lot of plants are being built and expanded in Michigan and Ohio. There is no reason why the economy can't grow at a 20% pace in the third quarter. That would be a record. And interestingly, it'll be a number that's going to be announced before November 3rd. It gets announced probably around November 1st, which is very interesting. But it's going to grow at a very substantial pace based on all of the numbers we're looking at, and probably a
can be
lot more
directed to Secret
substantial
Service
than we
officers.
originally thought.
Can I
We're
interrupt?
creating new
Secret
incentives
Service
for working
is
jobs,
at a
and we're also
briefing now.
providing much needed
So
assistance to
communication
those who
and media
are still
relations.
suffering.
Thank you very much.
Was the suspect armed? You had mentioned that there was an object. I'm trying to figure out what that object was done. What was the object that you described and what you just read, sir? Mr. Sullivan? Sure. Mr. Sullivan, can you come to the mic, please?
Good evening. I'm Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll of the Metropolitan Police Department. As Chief Sullivan indicated, members of the Metropolitan Police Department were alerted to the incident that occurred here at the White House this evening. Members from our 2nd District and our Special Operations Division responded to provide assistance to the Uniform Division Secret Service, as well as members from our Internal Affairs Division and our Criminal Investigations Division. At this time, members of the MPD Criminal Investigations Division are assisting with the ongoing investigation of the incident that occurred here at the White House. Additionally, members of the Internal Affairs Division are assisting the Office of Professional Responsibility of the Uniform Division Secret Service with their investigation as well. At this point, the Metropolitan Police Department is in a supporting role of the United States Secret Service, and any of the questions we can refer back to Chief Sullivan and the Secret Service.
How is the Secret Service officer injured?
Okay, it looks like I will cue this back up soon as this briefing is done and watch the whole thing.
From the effects of the pandemic contraction, and the contraction is now, well, we have the pandemic, we have a lot of great things happening in terms of the vaccines and therapeutics, as you know, and I think we'll be making tremendous progress over the next period of a few months, and certainly before the end of the year. I think we'll have a vaccine before the end of the year, very substantially, and we may have a therapeutic resolvement very quickly, very, very quickly. And frankly, that's the one I'd rather have faster, because you'd go in, you'd give a transfusion or a shot, people that are very ill, and they'd be able to come out of the hospital the next day or a few days later. If the states participate in our cost-sharing unemployment plan, we are going to be doing something very, very interesting with all of the things that we announced on Saturday. I don't have to repeat what they are, you know very well, and we've had some tremendous success already. If you look at what's happening with the stock market, and people are very thrilled at what we're doing, we'd like to get the Democrats to focus on other than what they're focusing on, which is a bailout of poorly running states. We have many great running states, states that are setting records, and let's see what happens with respect to that. But we're looking at also considering a capital gains tax cut, which would create a lot more jobs. So we're looking very seriously at a capital gains tax cut, and also at an income tax cut for middle income families. We're looking at expanding the tax cuts that we've already done, but specifically for middle income families, and you'll be hearing about that in the upcoming few weeks, and I think it'll be very exciting. So a capital gains tax is going to be a lot of people put to work, and it will be a cut in the capital gains tax, and also a cut in the middle income tax. So I now want to just discuss a little quick brief, and then we'll take a few more questions. But we took some, who would have known we were going to take questions before we started, right? Is that right, Jennifer? But that's the way it happens sometimes. We want to discuss, if we might, the China virus, and the world continues its fight against this horrible plague. Countries in every continent are seeing increases in cases. We have a rapid increase only in cases, where it's very interesting because we're so far ahead of testing, we have more cases. If we had much smaller testing, we'd have fewer, but we feel that having testing is a very important thing. It's a great record to have in many ways. We've tested, I guess, close to 65 million people right now, and nobody's even close to that number. No other country is close. India would be second at 11 million, and they have 1.5 billion people. So we have the number one testing anywhere in the world by far, and we also have, I think, the highest quality tests. We have a lot of different ones, but we have the highest quality, including the short term and the lab tests. The lab tests take a little bit longer. And Dr. Birx was telling me a little while ago that we're down to 2 days and 2.5 days on getting your result on the lab test. The other ones, you get them in 5 minutes to 15 minutes, so that's exciting. But countries in every continent are seeing increases in cases. In recent days, cases have rapidly increased in Japan and Australia, unfortunately, and they're now experiencing higher peaks than they did in March. To the south of our border, cases have continued to surge in Mexico, Central America, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Brazil, and throughout Latin America. It's really the hot spot. It's posing a major challenge for this continent. Latin America is now the region with the most number of confirmed cases by far, despite a relative scarcity of testing. So when you think of that, that means it's pretty much on fire. They're having a hard time, and we're helping them. We're sending them tremendous numbers of ventilators, which we're making by the thousands every month, and we're helping Latin America very much. It's hard for them to come into the country because we have big sections of wall up now. The new wall is being built, which people don't talk about. They used to talk about nothing but the wall. Now that it's being built, they're not talking about it so much, but it's helped us because we're up to we're getting close to 280 miles. 280 miles in the most important areas. So that's helping us a lot in terms of not having people come in to the country who are infected with the coronavirus. This global trend underscores the persistence of the virus, including in nations that apply the strictest and most punishing lockdowns. You have nations that are really tough on the lockdowns, and they're getting hit very hard. That's why my administration is pursuing a science-based approach that protects the most vulnerable, preserves hospital capacity, and focuses on the delivery and development of treatments and ultimately the vaccine. I feel strongly that we will have a vaccine by the end of the year, and it'll be put in service maybe even as we get it, because we're all set militarily. We're using our military to distribute the vaccine. And logistically, there's nobody like this group of people. I meet with them a lot, and they're ready to go. As soon as they have it, they'll be going. But more importantly, the therapeutics, as I said, I think the therapeutics could be great. Initially speaking, I think that would be, if I had my choice. But you can have them both. You can have them both. You can have them both very soon, too. At the same time, we urge all Americans to apply common sense mitigation. You all know what that mitigation is. Everybody knows it by heart now. Nearly half of all of the deaths from the China virus in the United States have occurred in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. That's why we have delivered funding, equipment, and rapid testing to our nation's nursing homes to protect those at high risk. We're very focused on nursing homes and senior citizens areas. Anywhere that we have senior citizens, we're very, very focused. We've delivered over 1,800 rapid point-of-care testing devices. Those are very quick. And shipped over 700,000 tests to nursing homes. Nursing homes are being protected like never before. The United States faces a unique range of challenges that requires our constant vigilance. America has the largest at-risk population of any developed country. By far, 1.5 million residents of nursing homes, about 5 times that of the United Kingdom and other European countries. Our country also has a higher prevalence of underlying conditions that this virus targets, yet we have fewer deaths per capita than the United Kingdom and most other peer nations in Western Europe. So that's an important, we have fewer deaths per capita than the United Kingdom and most other nations in Western Europe, and heading for even stronger numbers. But one person is too much as far as I'm concerned. Should have never been allowed to happen. Should have never been allowed to escape China. Nationwide, we continue to see encouraging signs. In the last 7 days, nationwide cases declined by 14%. Hospitalizations decreased by 7%. Fatalities decreased by 9%. Arizona and Florida are improving rapidly, with fewer patients coming to emergency rooms by far, as well as decreasing cases, decreasing fatalities, and expected and expanded hospital capacities. So we have an expanded hospital capacity. It's pretty dramatic when you look at it, meaning we have more room should we need it. So a lot of tremendous work has been done. In Texas, likewise, the number of patients going to emergency rooms has dropped from July by more than 2/3. That's a lot. Nevertheless, we continue to monitor Texas very closely. Terrific governor, terrific people working on that whole situation in Texas, especially at its test positivity rate, which rose over 20% this weekend. Overall, cases in Texas are coming down and have stabilized in the border counties. That's again where you have the wall and you're next to, in some cases, the wall. In some cases, you'll have it very shortly. You'll have it all built within a number of months. But those areas were hit very hard, and there are likely cases from Mexico that come in, back and forth from the border. They come in illegally. As doctors have found more effective ways to treat patients, the fatality rate continues to improve. Texas has 1/6 the fatality rate of New York and New Jersey that they had in April. And if you look at New York and New Jersey, they work very, very hard, but very heavy density, and there are a lot of different kinds of difficulty. The fatality rates in Florida and Arizona are between 25 and 33% of the peak rates of New York and New Jersey. Again, different climate, a different grouping, different density, tremendously different density. In California, the situation is starting to stabilize and improve throughout the major metropolitan areas. Statewide, hospitalizations continue to decline very substantially, with about 20% fewer inpatients now than on July 21st. California is starting to really show signs of correcting. We're monitoring regions with increasing cases, including Boston, Chicago, and the Midwest, and we're monitoring them very, very strongly and very, very hard. I do want to say that I think at the end of a fairly short period of time, you're going to be in very, very good shape all over our country. Every loss of life is tragic, and all nations must work together to defeat this horrible virus. My administration is going to continue to save as many lives as possible. We are working round the clock, everybody. It's incredible how hard they're working. And people from other countries, we're working with them also, and they're working very hard. This is something that's now attacked 188 different countries. There are a wide range of factors that determine how the virus impacts a nation, such as age, underlying conditions. Underlying conditions is a very big one. If you're sick in any way, if especially they say heart and diabetes, that's not a good thing to have. If you're going to have this, if you're going to catch it, so we're trying to protect especially those people that have problems with their heart or diabetes and levels of pre-existing immunity resulting from past exposure to other viruses, which happens. We must stop politicizing the virus and instead be united in our condemnation of how this virus came to America, how this virus came to the world, and we're going to figure it out, and we're going to find out, and we're very angry about it. On the therapeutics and vaccine updates, 3 vaccine candidates are currently in phase 3 clinical trials, something that would have been impossible under the previous administration or any other administration. And several others are showing considerable promise. We have great companies, very well-known companies. I think everyone in this room would know these companies, but they're the biggest and the best in the world. And we're working with other foreign companies and countries that have been really working very closely with us. We're trading. We're not looking to do anything but come up with the answer, and we really don't. We don't care. We want to come up with the answer. If it's one of ours or one of theirs, it's okay. We have to come up with the answer, and we're very close to getting it. Some people think we have it. We may have it. We have the best scientists in the world racing to develop a safe vaccine that will end this pandemic, save millions of lives, and that's millions of lives all over the world, and end the harm inflicted by this virus to our society and to all other nations. Last week, the NIH began a clinical trial of remdesivir paired with another approved antiviral drug and anti-inflammatory drug. You know that remdesivir has been very successful, and now they're experimenting with others, including antivirals and anti-inflammatories, and they're having some very interesting success. We've secured enough remdesivir to treat over 650,000 patients. On Saturday, I took executive action in its signing to save American jobs and support American workers. I signed directives to give a payroll tax holiday with the understanding that after the election, on the assumption that it would be victorious for an administration that's done a great job, we will be ending that tax, we'll be terminating that tax. On the other hand, the other group wants to raise taxes, and they may want to leave it where you pay it, but the payroll tax is a big deal for people. It's a tremendous saving for people, and we're going to be doing it, and we intend to terminate it at the end of the appropriate period of time. It's for those making less than $100,000 through the end of 2020 to provide an extra $400 per week also in unemployment benefits, and to extend the freeze on home evictions. We want to extend the freeze so people aren't evicted. It's not their fault that the virus came from China. It's China's fault. And to suspend payments on student loans through the end of the year and then beyond. And again, they're paying interest on loans, and they're not allowed to go to their college. So we're going to suspend payments on student loans through the end of the year, and then another extension most likely, because it's not fair to the students to have to pay when the colleges aren't doing the job of getting open. And I think probably many of them could be open. So I want to thank you all. I'm sorry for the disturbance before. Things happen, and if you'd like, we'll take a few questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it. Haley said earlier today that you've been...
Well, the Secret Service just came out with a short, statement, and I will present that for you right now.
At approximately 5:53 p.m. today, a 51-year-old male approached a Secret Service Uniform Division officer who was standing his post at 17th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest, near the White House complex. The suspect approached the officer and told the officer he had a weapon. The suspect then turned around, ran aggressively towards the officer, and in a drawing motion withdrew an object from his clothing. He then crouched into a shooter's stance as if he was about to fire a weapon. The Secret Service officer discharged his weapon, striking the individual in the torso. Officers immediately rendered first aid to the suspect, and DC Fire and EMS were called to the scene. Both the suspect and the officer were transported to a local hospital. The White House complex was never breached during the incident, nor was the Secret Service protectee ever in danger. The Secret Service Office of Professional Responsibility will be conducting an internal review of the officer's actions. The Metropolitan Police Department was contacted to conduct an investigation. This concludes my statement. I will not take any questions at this time since the investigation is still ongoing. Queries can be directed to Secret Service Office of Communication and Media Relations.
What's the suspect armed?
Thank you very much.
What's the suspect armed? You had mentioned that there was an object. I'm trying to figure out what that object was gun. What was the object that you described and what you just read, sir? Mr. Sullivan?
Sure.
Mr. Sullivan, can you come to the mic, please?
Good evening. I'm Assistant Chief Jeff Carroll of the Metropolitan Police Department. As Chief Sullivan indicated, members of the Metropolitan Police Department were alerted to the incident that occurred here at the White House this evening. Members from our 2nd District and our Special Operations Division responded to provide assistance to the Uniform Division Secret Service, as well as members from our Internal Affairs Division and our Criminal Investigations Division. At this time, members of the MPD Criminal Investigations Division are assisting with the ongoing investigation of the incident that occurred here at the White House. Additionally, members of the Internal Affairs Division are assisting the Office of Professional Responsibility of the Uniform Division Secret Service with their investigation as well. At this point, the Metropolitan Police Department is in a supporting role of the United States Secret Service, and any other questions we can refer back to Chief Sullivan and the Secret Service.
Mr. Sullivan, can you answer your weapon?
How was the Secret Service officer injured?
And that's the only statement that we have thus far. Thank you to the Secret Service for responding as quickly as they did in protecting the president. And the president, of course, went to finish up his press conference like a boss that he is. He's not going to let this bother him or disrupt his duties as president. And this is the kind of leader we need to keep in office. This is really important because, if scary, creepy Joe was in office, he'd be probably running for the nearest bunker and locking the doors. He would not come back out. Any other man would be scared. This man does not get scared. We've seen it a couple of times. He was in the airport. Somebody came up behind him, and his Secret Service just tackled him. Man didn't budge. He is a rock. And this is the kind of leader we all need at this time. So this is another important reason why we need to continue to support and pray for this man and re-elect him in November. They proceeded with a press conference after the president, so I will play that for you. Because if I'm pronouncing her name right, Kayleigh, she is the bomb. She is a beast. She can handle the press. She doesn't take no slack. She is very well prepared, and she is just great, man. She always puts the press back in their place.
Of Americans hardest hit by this pandemic. Amid inaction, President Trump stood up for every American who, through no fault of their own, needed relief. Politics, as usual, should find no place during this pandemic, but Democrats rejected multiple clean bills to provide relief. The American people are tired of games, they seek leadership, and President Trump delivered. This weekend, President Trump took executive action designed to provide the relief Democrats have denied to those who need it most. Through 4 executive orders, he took the following steps. On the payroll tax, he deferred payments of the employee portion of certain payroll taxes from September 1st through the end of 2020. On unemployment assistance, states will provide 25% cost sharing, amounting to a total of $400 per week in benefits through the end of the year. And then third, he extended the eviction protections. President Trump will direct HUD to prevent evictions resulting from financial hardships caused by the virus, doing everything in his executive capacity to make sure those renting and those homeowners are protected. Finally, on student loans, he extended 0% interest and suspended loan payments through the end of the year. The bottom line is that these actions will help Americans. President Trump is for the American people, and Democrats failed to deliver. Also, earlier this year, hundreds of Americans, working men and women at the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, were told that they would lose their jobs to lower paid foreign workers imported from abroad, and then suffer the further indignity of training their foreign replacements. President Trump boldly and resolutely intervened in defense of these hardworking Americans, rallying to their case, rushing to their aid, and taking action to restore their jobs. He invited laid-off workers and their representatives to the White House, and then he fired the chairman of the board of the TVA and one other board member. President Trump offered an ultimatum. The firings would continue until the cruel and heartless decision to fire the hard-working Americans was reversed. TVA did reverse. Layoffs have been canceled and tech workers have been rehired. In the words of Gay Henson, president of the Engineering Associates IFPTE Local 1937, the labor union representing the 2,200 highly skilled professionals employed by the TVA. In Ms. Henson's words, the president's personal intervention saved these jobs, restored the workers to their rightful place, and set TVA on the path to returning to its mission of service to both the workers at the TVA and to the people of this country. And with that, I'll take questions. Yes.
Kayleigh, thank you. Starting right there with the president's actions over the weekend, how quickly can Americans expect to see that extra $400 of unemployment insurance?
So we hope to see it quickly and close to immediately. I don't have an exact readout for you on time, but a lot of this will depend on states and them applying, because as you know, it's 75% federal government covering and 25% the states, and they can use CARES funding or even existing unemployment funds for that $100, but it will require an application process.
And given that part of it is up to the states in the application process, is it possible that there will be a delay and that some individuals won't see this relief at all?
We will be working around the clock to make sure there's not a delay, but any delay that does exist, it's important to note where that delay and the responsibility rests. And it's with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, who they were offered a clean extension, not of $400 of unemployment benefits, but $600, and it was roundly rejected by Democrats. So this president stood up for the American worker at a time when Democrats refused to do so.
And just to be very clear, you're saying that you're going to work around the clock. You want it to get to Americans quickly. Are we talking weeks? Are we talking a month? Can you pinpoint the timeline?
I can't pinpoint a timeline other than we'll be working around the clock, and we encourage Democrats on the Hill to come back. Secretary Mnuchin has said he's willing to review any proposal because the American people deserve better than the games and the partisanship they've seen from Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and their Democrat colleagues. Ben.
Thanks, Kayleigh. Two questions. Just to follow up on what Kristen was asking, is there a mechanism by which the federal government can provide the $300 immediately, even if states don't provide the $100?
Well, it's important and in fact required by statute that 25% of that money be provided by states, and the 75% is what we can do from the federal government side. I would note states can look to CARES Act funding as a way to bring that $100 forward. They can also look to the general fund, but we will be pursuing every creative way possible to make sure that the preeminent priority prevails, and that is making sure that this money gets to America's workers.
And then the orders that the president signed that doesn't address funding for small businesses or for schools or stimulus checks, does he still want legislation to address all of those things? And is he willing to negotiate with Democrats?
He absolutely would love to see both of those things. School funding is very important, and he's been for second round of direct payments. So we encourage Democrats to really negotiate with us in good faith. So far, they have not done so. In fact, moving further away from us rather than towards us. Negotiations work by coming towards one another, and it's incumbent upon Democrats to do that.
They say they've come down from $3 trillion to $2 trillion. Is the White House willing to go up from one to something else?
They've still put in several non-starters. They've never put forward a serious proposal, and the notion before they claimed to have come down, they actually went up, and then they wanted $100 billion in school funding. We said, okay, we'll give you more than you asked for, $105 billion, to which was no longer acceptable. So they've been fundamentally unserious with each and every one of their offers in this negotiation. Yes.
Thank you. A number of Democrats, but also Republican Senator Ben Sasse, have suggested these executive actions are unconstitutional. Can you walk us through what the White House is using as a legal rationale for the president to step in here, and would you be able to share the legal opinions?
Yes, I absolutely can do that. First, I would note that what we are doing is entirely within the executive capacity of the president. On student loans, Section 2A, 2 subsection A of the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Student Acts of 2003, which is 20 U.S.C. 1098BB, authorizes the Secretary to waive or modify provisions of student financial assistance programs to ensure that individuals who've been affected by the national emergency are not worse off financially. There's another statute for that one, Section 432 of the Higher Education Act of 1965, which gives broad authority to the Secretary. On unemployment, the Stafford Act, 42 U.S.C. 5174, says the president, after a state applies for it, can provide assistance to people who have been adversely affected by a major disaster. These are often known as Other Needs Assistance, or ONA. On payroll tax authority, 26 U.S.C. 7508A plainly authorizes the Treasury Secretary to provide any taxpayer that has been affected by a federally declared disaster with an extension of up to a year. This was used before when the Secretary extended the individual filing deadline for 2019 taxes from April to July. And finally, for evictions, the authority would be suggesting that HHS and HUD consider whatever legal authorities they have to protect Americans. And also, the president merely instructed in that EO that we should do everything within the lawful capacity of the executive branch to protect Americans from evictions.
Yes, Haley, on China, is the administration planning to respond to the new sanctions that China announced this morning on several lawmakers and other people in the United States?
So I won't get ahead of the president on any actions, but we are certainly aware of the announced sanctions. And instead of taking meaningful actions such as immediately repealing the national security law and stopping the systematic repression of Uyghurs, the Chinese Communist Party opted to respond with this symbolic and ineffectual action. And a growing number of nations around the globe are demanding real action from Beijing. The ball is in the Chinese Communist Party's court. This president has stood strongly against China, and he'll continue to do so.
Is there any discussion, Kaylee, of delisting Chinese companies on the U.S. Stock Exchange?
Again, I won't get ahead of the president on any official announcements.
Thank you. The president said over the weekend that he had heard from Democrats about wanting to restart these negotiations. Who exactly did he hear from? And then also his tweet this morning regarding, he said that he said that Leader Schumer and Speaker Pelosi had his number and regarding negotiations. Does that mean he is going to play a larger role in this process going forward, or is it still going to be Secretary Mnuchin and the Chief of Staff?
Well, they speak on the president's behalf. He's been actively engaged in the negotiations and working closely with Secretary Mnuchin and the Chief of Staff. Democrats should come to the table. Their immediate statement in the aftermath of the president issuing these EOs says that they would like to meet halfway, but those are empty words from Democrats that they'd like to meet halfway, because so far they've just gone in the other direction.
So did anybody reach out to him?
I'm not going to go through the president's call logs, but you guys can ask him later today if you'd like. He'll have a press briefing at about 5:30. Jeff.
Thank you, Kaylee. Secretary Pompeo has raised the issue of Russian bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan with his counterpart. Does that mean that the administration now considers the intelligence on this secure or clear? And if so, does the president plan to raise it with President Putin?
Yeah, so on the part about Secretary Pompeo, I'd refer you to the State Department. That was a New York Times story. So in terms of his personal conversations, I would refer you there. But on the part of the president, this was unverified, not conclusory as the New York Times initially reported. The president will always act in the interests of our troops and look no further than the killing of Soleimani and al-Baghdadi, which brought vindication to hundreds of U.S. servicemen and women who lost their lives overseas.
Just to be clear, does that mean that that Pompeo did not raise this? Does that mean that
I would refer you to the State Department.
But are the two sides seeing seeing the intelligence as different here and the State Department?
Again, you're asking me to verify reporting that would be in the realm of the State Department, but rest assured this president will always act in the best interest of our troops. Yes.
Thanks, Kaylee. Back on the executive orders the president signed this weekend, as a candidate, Donald Trump criticized fairly sharply Barack Obama's use of executive orders and faulting him for failing to reach deals with members of Congress. How were the president's actions this weekend any different from President Obama's?
They're a lot different when you consider the fact that President Barack Obama utilized executive order to push forward a policy that he denied he had the right to push forward 23 times on DAPA and on DACA. He said at least 23 times, I don't have the power to do this, and then he went on to do just that. I've already listed out and enumerated the various legal authorities on the part of the president, and in terms of deal making, I would note that the CARES Act was landmark legislation, at really the height of this pandemic, that brought relief to the American people, and that was negotiated within 1 week from first drafting to enactment. And by comparison, if we want to go back to President Obama, the American Recovery Act during the Great Recession took roughly 3 months from inception to enactment as law under single-party control. This president managed to push the CARES Act through divided government, a very big accomplishment on the part of the president. Yes.
Kelly, the deal that the president announced late last month with Kodak to make new drugs in the United States is apparently on hold now amid allegations of insider trading. Is the president concerned that his infrastructure here is being misused, that the Defense Production Act funds are potentially being misused? Would he pull the plug on the Kodak deal? And what does it say about the safeguards that you have in place that this potentially could have resulted in insider trading?
So first, the president will always act in the best interest of the American people. As you noted, as soon as we became aware of these allegations, the International Development Finance Corporation said that the recent allegations of wrongdoing raise serious concerns. We will not proceed any further unless these allegations are cleared. The president has strong faith in the process here. We've used the DPA more than 30 times to increase production, and it's been to great effect when you consider in the stockpile. We've seen vast increases, tripling the amount of N95s, tripling the number of gowns, 4 times the number of ventilators on hand at 69,000, and we'll have more than 10,000 more by the fall. So this president has used the DPA effectively, but we're certainly aware of the Kodak allegations and take them seriously.
Would he pull the plug on that deal?
I'll leave that to the president, but he takes these very seriously. We
Fine.
won't speculate as to what that investigation finds.
Thank you. 2 questions, if I may. The president just tweeted that Gettysburg would be one of the 2 sites he's looking at. What can you characterize the message that he'd want to be sending with that choice, if it was that choice?
Yeah, I won't get ahead of the president as to what his convention speech will look like, but the president has done a lot to bring this country together. We've faced unprecedented challenges, and he's worked to make sure that the American people are best equipped and taken care of to rise above the challenges that we face, and he has a strong record of achievement that he'll be touting on that day.
Sorry, the other question, if you don't mind. Is there a message to the protesters in Belarus? Is the president looking at that? Is he supporting them?
Yes, so we are looking at that, and we're deeply concerned by the Belarus presidential election. Severe restrictions on ballot access for candidates, prohibition of local independent observers at polling stations, intimidation of opposition candidates, and the detention of peaceful protesters and journalists have marred the process, and we urge the Belarusian government to respect the right of to peaceably assemble and to refrain from use of force. Yes.
Thanks, Kaylee. Is the president willing to provide some aid for states and local governments, given that the administration is asking states to pay for a quarter of the National Guard assistance and now a quarter of the unemployment benefits?
Yeah, the president's always been clear here that, he wants to support state and local governments, but only for COVID-related matters, and he doesn't want to bail out blue states that had structural problems long before this, so that's where his priorities lie. Yes.
Hi, I have 2 questions, one from somebody who can't be here today. But first of all, the president also just tweeted student athletes have been working too hard for their season to be cancelled. So does he disagree with colleges cancelling sports, and how would he guarantee their safety if games did go ahead?
Yes, I spoke to the president in the Oval Office about that just before walking out here, and he is very much would like to see college football safely resume their sport. And as he mentioned in that tweet, a lot of these college athletes, work their whole lives to get, 4 years. Sometimes if they're redshirted an extra year, if they're lucky, they work their whole lives for this moment, and he'd like to see them have a chance to live out their dreams.
And a question from Anthony Leake of the Chronicle Fashion Guide. Do you have any reaction to the resignation of the Prime Minister and Cabinet in Lebanon?
Yeah, the president's aware of the situation, but that was just breaking as I came out, so I have nothing to add to that, other than our heart is with the people and those who lost their lives. Christian.
Thanks, Kaylee. 2 on the orders. Is the administration at all concerned that funding the federal government's cost share through FEMA could leave the government underfunded for hurricane season? And then secondly, on the housing provisions, I'm just curious, why didn't the president extend the eviction moratorium as it was outlined in CARES? Was that because it was deemed unconstitutional?
So on evictions, I would note that the president took 4 strong actions here. And again, the eviction moratorium there was a temporary moratorium put in place by the CARES Act. So the president did what he can within his executive capacity, and it was 4-part, taking all lawful measures to prevent residential evictions. Number 2, instructing HHS and CDC to take measures to temporarily prohibit residential evictions. On HUD, prioritizing federal fundings that can be used as financial assistance to struggling renters and homeowners, and also HUD working with its grantees and partners to ensure that homeowners are not forced out. And with regard to HHS, as they explore their executive authority here, 42 U.S.C. 264A authorizes the Surgeon General in consultation with the Secretary to make and enforce such regulations as is in his judgment that are necessary to prevent the introduction, transmission, or spread of communicable diseases. So it will be within HHS's purview to determine whether whether COVID meets those standards, and it could go a long way in helping Americans who face eviction. And your second question...
It was about FEMA. Is there a concern that, pulling from the disaster funds could leave them underprepared for the rest of, the worst part of hurricane season coming?
Yeah, so there is that snapback provision that if FEMA does get below a certain level, that money will snap back. So that is certainly a concern, and we'll make sure that two things happen, that Americans get paid, but also that there's enough funding there to safely go through hurricane season. Yes.
Thank you very much. Two questions. What would you like the White House would like to see happening in Lebanon right now, next? And this weekend, the U.S. reached 5 million coronavirus cases, and Brazil 100,000 deaths. As healthcare experts compares the response from both governments. What went wrong here and there?
So first with Lebanon, that was your first question. We're monitoring the situation closely. As I've said, our heart goes out to the men and women who lost their lives. It's an absolute tragedy. And the president participated in a virtual conference with international leaders to work closely in our international response effort. We are delivering aid to the region, and our deepest condolences go out to the victims. With regard to the U.S. response to the coronavirus, we've done more testing than any country in the world. And we do identify more cases. We do have, after all, the most testing, as the president has noted. When you look at the U.S. response, the therapeutics, the beginning of this, there was no coronavirus test. It was a novel virus, but we immediately worked to get more than 100 emergency use authorizations to identify various types of testing on therapeutics. There was no therapeutic that we knew to work with COVID. It was a novel virus, but again, this president worked, and there are more than 210 clinical trials on therapeutics, and we have dexamethasone and convalescent plasma, remdesivir, and others, and the vaccine to be on pace to be completed by the end of the year. When Ebola, it took 4 years to go to completion. This president is securing a vaccine at the fastest rate ever for a novel pathogen. So this president has a really historic coronavirus relief response that we're happy to talk about.
Comparisons between Brazil and the U.S.?
Thank you, so going back to his question on HHS and the executive order, is there no real solution then for people who may be facing eviction by the end of this month or early September?
Well, there is a solution. I've mentioned the 4 things that we've done and will continue to do, but the real solution, the holistic solution, rests with Congress and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer coming to the table. This president instructed his administration to find every single way possible that without congressional Democrats who have been unrelenting and lacking in any sort of care or empathy for the American people, at least when it comes to their negotiating tactics, if they're not going to act and care for the American people, he would. So he instructed this administration to pursue every legal avenue available to us without Chuck and Nancy, and he's done just that.
And then on the,
Chanel.
Thanks, Kaylee. With the president bypassing Democrats stalling with the stimulus bill, as we've been discussing in this room, how pressing is it to actually have a next phase bill? Because it seems that the executive order and the 3 memoranda that he just signed really was kind of a wish list of items he wanted to pass. So how motivated is the White House to push for a next phase stimulus bill in spite of what Mnuchin said this morning?
Yeah, the White House is still motivated. The president would love to see the direct payments to Americans. The president would love to see the school funding. There are several items that we'd like to see happen. The more relief for the American people, and those in need in particular, the better. But this president, has taken action to alleviate some of that burden. But make no mistake, there's still much more that we'd like to accomplish. But that includes having willing negotiating partners in Congress, and so far we have none in the Democrat Party, it seems. And then finally, one thing I want to leave you guys with is that 18 days ago, Mayor Ted Wheeler tweeted, "What I saw last night in Portland was powerful in many ways. I listened, heard, and stood with protesters, and I saw what it means when the federal government unleashes paramilitary forces against its own people." He in fact called our federal agents paramilitary forces, and around this same time, our federal officers were facing rioters, barricading officers inside the courthouse, trapping officers inside, launching of commercial-grade fireworks. A federal agent's hand was impaled by planted nails. 3 officers were were at least temporarily, I should say, blinded when a laser was put in their eyes. This has been an ongoing tactic by the rioters. That was 18 days ago when Mayor Wheeler stood with the rioters and against the, quote, paramilitary forces. But just 4 days ago, it appears Mayor Wheeler had a change of heart. as local officers took over the situation in Portland. And he now, I guess this is what he believes now, quote, "When you commit arson with an accelerant in an attempt to burn down a building that is occupied by people who you have intentionally trapped inside, you are not demonstrating, you are attempting to commit murder." He could not be more right about that. It is a drastic change. It took him 73 days, I suppose, to come up with that realization. And what we're seeing in Portland with 6 nights in a row, riots being declared. On Wednesday, you had some of these rioters shining lasers in officers' eyes, disable security cameras, broke windows, used boards to barricade the doors, and start a fire with 20 sworn officers and civilian employees inside. This is unacceptable, and it is encouraging to see that the Liberal mayor of Portland finally seems to realize that. Thank you, everyone.
I want to apply this to Biden because I don't believe for a second that the Washington Press Corps thinks Joe Biden is a really great Democratic nominee. They're stuck with him, right? I mean, some of them might think, well, he's, kind of mushy in the head. He'll sign on to whatever the left wants. But I don't think they love him the way they loved Obama, okay? I think they don't even look at him the way they looked at Clinton in the first term. I think they're kind of stuck with him. But you're right, and I love this quote. Once respected national media figures routinely call President Trump a Nazi, a liar, mentally unhinged, corrupt, a traitor, a Russian asset, a bully, a tyrant, and so on and on. They pummeled him for 2 years with made-up stories, gossip, and speculation, while Special Counsel Mueller and his team silently conducted a thoroughly and lengthy investigation into every aspect of the Trump campaign and Russian interference in the 2016 election. When they found no evidence of collusion, the press, encouraged by Democrats in Congress, moved on to look elsewhere in the hopes of finding some crime that could be linked to Trump, his businesses, his family, his taxes, his non-traditional foreign policy. The media are now like a dog with a bone. They will never stop harassing Trump. Over 90% of all news coverage of Trump was and remains negative. I don't believe for a second the people that are doing exactly what you say here really like Biden. I don't buy it.
No, I think that he's just not Trump, right? And he's the one person that the Democrats could agree on. I'm not even convinced, though, Andrew, that he's going to be the ultimate nominee.
Really?
I don't think Joe Biden is capable of having a debate. And maybe he can weasel out of ever having a debate, but if he does have to debate, I don't think
Wait, who's going to be, if you have a theory here about who the nominee might be ultimately, ditch.
I don't know. I just think that if Joe Biden, and I'm not going to make fun of him like a lot of people do, because look, it could be us someday when we get older.
Yeah, but we won't be running for president.
That's right. He obviously has diminished. I mean, I've known him for 45 years. He has diminished mental capabilities right now compared to what he had before. And I don't think he's capable of having a tough, hard-hitting debate with President Trump, because it would be tough and hard-hitting, even if he got softball questions by the press. So I'm just questioning. Maybe I'm sure he'll get the nomination from his virtual convention. But if he has to debate, I don't think he can. And so maybe at that point, does he step back and then say, well, my vice president will now become the presidential nominee, and then that person will debate? Because debating President Trump, people think, oh, President Trump's always not that good a debater. He's not that smart. He's dumb like Fox. He knows exactly what he's doing. And I think he would just mop the floor with Joe Biden. That's why I think they won't let him debate.
See, my fear is, and I said it on radio, that whoever his vice president pick is going to tie a string to his wrist and then to, I guess, her wrist, and they're going to be signing pieces of legislation. I mean, it'll say Joe Biden, but really the approval the approval will come from whoever the vice president is. Whatever the left puts in front of that person, they're going to sign, and it's going to be a piece of string going back and forth, actually being signed by Joe Biden. But the real power is going to rest ultimately with whoever the vice president is. And if you want to talk about the way the press and the Democrats brought up the 25th Amendment with Trump, some part of me fears that 25th Amendment question is going to come creeping in 10 months into the first year of a Biden administration. If he wins, I don't think he's going to, though.
No, I don't think he is either. I think there are a lot of people, especially in the last several months. I mean, when after the pandemic and then there was lockdown and recession, and now the social unrest. I think a lot of people have said, whoa, wait a minute. I don't want to go to this crazy man land that we're going to in Portland or in other cities of the United States. I think there are a lot of people who are going to not say anything to the pollsters, but are going to show up at the polls and say, you know, I may have a lot of issues with Donald Trump, but I know he's a lot better than the other guy. And I do think he's going to fix the economy. He's going to bring it back a second time. And I think particularly if we have some progress towards, if not a cure, a vaccine, if it looks like we're getting the virus under control, and I think that we will. It'll take some time, but I think we will.
I'm going to tell you this: Revolution, Trump, Washington, and We the People is a great read. I'm really glad we were able to do this. And look, I started reading the book, and look, quarantine. Sometimes quarantine ain't so bad. You get some time to read books by friends, and then we get to do this, and this is something that you and I get to do. I just gotta tell you, it really is a great book, and I hope everybody watching this tonight or whenever you watch it on demand, you get the book, because I'm just telling you, it's an enjoyable read.
Well, Andrew, coming from you, that's an enormous compliment, because I know how much time you spend, not only in the current events, but on the theories behind them, particularly economic policy and again, the foundational documents and what really has made America great. So a compliment from you is like a double dose compliment, because I really admire you and the whole approach that you have and the voice that you have in the nation. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, KT. Enjoy quarantine in the Hamptons. Happy belated birthday. I'll see you when I see you, and we'll get you back on radio soon.
I can't wait. Thank you, Andrew. Again, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.
I present that to you. Haven't done any well cow in quite a while. And, I think the theory is kind of right, but if correct, I think this is the right date. Hillary is supposed to testify once again on the 9th of September. So, more than likely, all she's going to do is say, I plead the fifth, I don't know, laugh. It's all a joke to her. She still thinks she's very untouchable, but I'm going to still go with Dick Morrison's theory. Now, people don't know Dick Morrison. He used to work for the Clintons as an advisor. And he's a very smart man. He has now turned on them and become a Republican. And for good reason. Because he knows what they are. So, his theory is it will be a broker convention. Hillary's waiting in the wings, and it does make sound a theory that she is, because remember, she is continuously out there. She's got her teeth done, she's got her hair done. In a recent tweet, she can't let the 2016 election go. She is so butthurt she can never sit still. And she's been taking swipes at him on Twitter and on whatever the hell she's doing, talk show circuit, whatever, speeches, who knows what the hell she's doing. And that's what worries me, because we don't know. But anyway, that is a possibility. There is no way, and this lady is correct, it's not going to be wipe the floor with Joe. He's going to get pulverized, absolutely pulverized, when it comes to the debates, no matter what they do. Now, I played this a while back, and I still think it's relevant. I mean, this is back from July 2nd, I believe. And here's some Huckabee.
Iron-fisted rule is finally disrupted, and Jerry the Hut Nadler gets a lesson on time. Hello, I'm Mike Huckabee with the breakdown. Project Veritas has released another undercover video, this one allegedly exposing the free speech-crushing leftist bias inside Facebook. Facebook insider whistleblower Zach McElroy said, quote, "We are essentially in charge of what gets said and what gets stifled," end quote. And he's willing to testify to Congress about Facebook's bias and its algorithm that results in 75 to 80% of posts selected for review being ones that support Trump or conservative causes. Take a little look at this clip from Project Veritas.
Upwards of 75 to 80% of the posts in that queue were from Republican pages. You've got a workplace full of mostly liberal-leaning Democrats, leftists essentially, and they are being put in charge of moderating the entire public discourse. For 75 to 80% of the posts to be targeting Republicans and conservatives, you can say it was a bot, but somebody had to design that algorithm. So really, somebody at Facebook.
The video captures Facebook moderators bragging about how they target and sideline conservative posts. One is asked if she deletes every Republican post that comes up, and she replies, "Yes, I don't give no blank, I'll delete it." As for anti-Trump posts that do violate policy, she said, "You got to take it down, but I leave it up. If you see something that's not supposed to be up, it's probably me." And another said, "If someone's wearing a MAGA hat, I'm going to delete them for terrorism. I think we're all doing that." Now, this is all in spite of Mark Zuckerberg's claim that Facebook doesn't have any bias. Why, to the contrary, he says, our goal is to be a platform for all ideas. Here's Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg testifying under oath to Congress.
I'm very committed to making sure that Facebook is a platform for all ideas. That is a very important founding principle of what we do. We're proud of the discourse and the different ideas that people can share on the service. And that is something that, as long as I'm running the company, I'm going to be committed to making sure is the case. Thank you.
Of course, he must define all ideas the way the New York Times defines all the news in its motto, all the news that's fit to print. What it really means for them is all the news that fits the left-wing political agenda. If Congress doesn't change the law to yank Facebook's protection from lawsuits as a neutral platform, then can we at least see perjury charges brought? Well, before I move to the next story, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, feel free to hit the button below and the notification bell next to it. But if you'd really rather not, just hit it 3 times. That'll do the trick. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer just got a double smackdown from the courts for her irrational Queen of Hearts style coronavirus rules. The Michigan Supreme Court ruled 7-0, 7-0 in favor of the 77-year-old barber named Carl Mahnke, who has been relentlessly hounded by Governor Whitmer for reopening his barber shop before he was about to lose it. She even had the state yank his barber's license. That's compassion. The court ruled unanimously she was taking too much license. Mahnke's attorney called it the most lopsided legal victory of his entire career. I'd say it wasn't the barber, but Governor Gretchen Whitmer who got clipped. This is my second favorite legal story of the week, right after the D.C. Appeals Court ruling on former General Mike Flynn. A Michigan judge was hearing a lawsuit by gym owners claiming that Whitmer's shutting them down when similar businesses such as bars and salons were allowed to open was arbitrary and baseless. Governor Whitmer insisted that all of her decisions are based on the facts and the best science, of course.
There is
In
no
his
facts.
measured but scathing ruling, the judge wrote that the plaintiffs had a very high bar to clear, while the state had a low bar. All the state had to do to win the case was offer any medical or scientific facts to support their claim of a connection between opening gyms and endangering the public health. Literally, all they had to do was just find one scientific fact, but they did not. Instead, the best they could come up with was, trust us, gyms are dangerous. Well, maybe to people prone to pulling a hamstring, but that has nothing to do with spreading a virus. So the judge ruled in favor of the gym owners, and he also flatly rejected the state's slippery slope argument, noting that It was the state who were actually creating a slippery slope. He said, and I quote, "If defendants can open or close any sector of the economy at will with nothing more than a vague reference that it is dangerous, the potential for abuse is palpable," end quote.
And she is continuing to do this. She is closing bars unless they serve food. She has shut down gyms once again.
But not the end of the story. Could we possibly get this judge to switch jobs with maybe Chief Justice John Roberts? Be a good trade. Aside from an emergency $1,200 check, the Democratic House that took over in 2018 hasn't.
Obviously, I wanted to take you to Michigan and show you, walk down memory lane with our wonderful governor. Yes, I'm being sarcastic. She has extended the whatever rule this is this time, executive order, till September 4th. So, and I bet you anything she will extend it further till November. I don't think she can handle our economy getting better. She doesn't like it. So, in that fashion, here is a dish. I know I'm going to mispronounce his name. And I don't mean to, because I really like this guy. He's super good. Souza. I like him, but I'm screwing up his name today. Sorry about that.
You can always take the measure of a man by how he responds under pressure. The problem is that when it's a public figure, most of the time we can't actually see him respond. He's in his office, and so we have to guess or speculate about how the person is going to react under events. But here with Trump, we actually have a very eye-opening case where he is escorted out in the middle of a press briefing.
Excuse me?
Oh, okay.
And then he comes back, only to announce that there's a shooter outside the White House, and apparently the Secret Service have shot the shooter. And a reporter asked Trump, "Are you rattled?" And this is how he responds.
Are you rattled by this at all, Mr. President?
I don't know. Do I seem rattled?
Trump's unbelievable sang-froid, his coolness under pressure is what is striking here. It sort of reminds me of, well, Winston Churchill during the Boer War was asked about being under fire. And he quipped, "It is always exhilarating to be shot at without result." I think back to Reagan, and Reagan, of course, was shot. And when he got to the hospital, the first thing he said was to the doctors, "I hope you are all Republicans." To which one of the doctors memorably replied, "Mr. President, today we are all Republicans." And then later, when Reagan was giving a speech several months later, and a balloon popped, bam! And Reagan, without missing a beat, goes, "Miss me."
We're reminded of the many traditions of openness and democracy that have marked the history of this city. America missed me.
Now that is this coolness under pressure, this imperturbability, the unwillingness to duck or go under your desk, which is, I think, the normal human reaction. Now, on a less inspiring note, I'm already beginning to see from the left sly insinuations that it would have been a good idea had the shooter succeeded. There's tweets that in effect say, "Oh wow, there's some good news and bad news, and the bad news is that President Trump is safe." That's the bad news. And now here I think we see how deeply our politics has been corrupted and poisoned. Because the rhetoric that has been hatched now for 4 years A rhetoric that continues to this day. President Trump has killed hundreds of thousands of people, as though he killed them personally. Whether or not you agree with his policies, this kind of incendiary rhetoric that kind of presents Trump as some sort of a murderer encourages extremism and fanaticism and assassination attempts. I remember after 9/11, a French leftist, a very prominent writer, said they did it, meaning the Islamic radicals did it, but we wished it. In other words, these French intellectuals, scumbags, wanted something like this. They were too cowardly to carry it out themselves. In fact, probably the French would have bungled the effort. But they were glad that the Islamic radicals did it. And that's the sentiment I'm seeing about Trump. It suggests our politics are ultimately, well, they're in the gutter right now. And hopefully with Trump's leadership and with the Trump second term, which will not brighten these people's day, we will start to climb out of it.
Amen. The man's a cool hand Luke. If you have not seen the movie, watch the movie. I mean, I loved when he goes, whatever. Let's get on with it. That's great. In the midst of all the other stuff, people are still walking away. And here's some more walk-away stories. I think they're very important. And if you have a walk-away story, please go to Brendan Strucker's webpage and make a video. That's Dinesh. Gosh, I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Okay, never mind. I know it.
That I would normally post, but I feel like it is far more important and something that needed to be addressed. So a little bit about me. My name is Tori Hadley. I am 19 years old and I am a sophomore at BYU in Idaho. I major in international studies with a minor in economics and I study human rights and advocacy. I was born and raised in San Diego in a very liberal town. When I got to high school, I was very socially constructed to believe that blacks are supposed to be Democrats. Then I got to college and everything changed. I started digging deep and was actually being immersed in politics, and I was able to really formulate my own opinion based on facts and realized that I had been lied to and tricked my entire life. I have to tell you guys a secret that's probably going to offend a lot of you and probably confuse most of you too. I'm a Republican. Black people aren't Republicans, Tori. Well, I am. I know being a Republican is very offensive today and punishable by being canceled. Before you dislike this video and unsubscribe and comment about how much you hate me, how I'm racist, and thrust my name down there, watch the video. And then you can do whatever you want. Unsubscribe, dislike it. I don't care, but just watch the video. When we think of equality and freedom, people tend to associate that with the Democratic Party, which in reality is completely wrong. Ever since it was founded in 1829, the Democratic Party has fought against every free major civil rights act. The Democratic Party defended slavery, started the Civil War, opposed Reconstruction, and founded the Ku Klux Klan. But that's not something you will learn in school because guess what? Liberals run the education system. The Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an anti-slavery party. I'm gonna say that again for the people in the back. Anti-slavery party. And their mission was to abolish slavery completely in the Western Territories. 7 Democratic justices voted in favor of slavery and 2 Republican justices opposed it. And this leads us to the Civil War in 1861 to 1865. Do you guys remember that great commander-in-chief that freed the slaves? Abraham Lincoln. Guess what? He was a Republican. And 6 days after the Confederate Army surrendered, John Wilkes Booth, a Democrat, assassinated him. The Vice President Lyndon Johnson assumed the position as president, and he was a Democrat. Luckily, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were still passed because of universal Republican support. And because of this, 22 black Republicans were able to serve in the US Congress. Democrats didn't elect any black people in Congress until 1935. So this Reconstruction occurred from 1865 to 1877, and that's because federal troops came in to grant blacks power. After they left, Democrats took back their power in the South. White supremacy was reestablished, and laws were put in place to restrict blacks once again. Black codes, poll taxes, and literacy tests all used to subvert black citizens. And this was all done by fear and terror from the Ku Klux Klan. And the founder of the KKK was Nathan Bedford Forrest, who, lo and behold, was a Democrat. Idiots! Eric Foner, who himself is a Democrat, said, in effect, the Klan was a military force serving the interests of the Democratic Party. Really? What makes you say that? That's so odd. Wow. Then, the only opposition that came to the landmark Civil Rights Act in 1964 came from the Democrats. But the Republicans were the ones that were able to get the extra votes to get this law passed and truly free black people in America and end segregation. So when the Democrats' efforts failed to enslave black people, they had to come up with a new tactic. Since black people are now able to vote, they might as well get them to vote Democrat.
Wait a minute.
Here is the irony of it all. President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was in the House from 1963 to 1969, had this to say about the Civil Rights Act. Go ahead and read it. I'm not gonna say it. This is a quote from Carol Swain. The Democratic Party prospers on the votes of the very people it has spent much of its history oppressing. Democrats falsely claimed that the Republican Party is the villain, when in reality, it's the failed policies of the Democratic Party that have kept the blacks down.
It was all a lie.
But Tori, all of this was years ago. The Democratic Party has changed. Well, no. Don't get me wrong, I have tons of friends and family members that are Democrats, and they are good people, but the ideologies they support are not helping the black community. These are statistics that I found from Candace Owens that get no coverage, that are very disturbing, that do not get talked about. 75% of black boys in California don't meet state reading requirements. In 2016, in inner cities like Baltimore, within 5 schools, none of the students were found to be proficient in math or reading. The single motherhood rate in black communities was at 23% in the 1960s and is at 74% today. More black babies are aborted than born in New York City. Whether you are pro-life or pro-choice, it is evident that Planned Parenthood is targeting black women. But that's not something you'll hear on the media because it doesn't fit the left's agenda. And these issues were all because of Democratic policies put in place to protect us. But that protection was just disguised as oppression. And this is where you have to be very perceptive of the media you are being fed every single day. It comes in a form of fear constructed by the left. These politicians use these terrible crimes that happen to innocent people as ways to gain the black vote. It's happened before from the Democratic Party. Fear tactics were used by the KKK to suppress us in the past. Why is this new news? They make us feel afraid, make us feel oppressed, and make us feel like we don't have a place in this country. And they mock the very existence of our ancestors that bled and died so we could stand here today and be free. And how do we react when they use these fear tactics every 4 years to get our vote? We allow them to make us feel like victims. Exactly what the left wants. They swoon in and promise that they can save us as long as we vote for them. But that protection was just disguised as oppression. The left does not care about black people. They care about votes.
Structure of the Negro community, it's controlled by the white liberal.
Let's take Hillary Clinton, for example. A white liberal who knows absolutely nothing about black history, claims she keeps hot sauce in her purse, and has a Beyonce concert.
Who usually poses as the friend.
I think she's actually trying to just get our vote, guys. And then we have Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe. He said something along the lines of, if you have a problem figuring out whether or not to vote for me or Trump, you ain't black. Wow, Joe, you have my vote. Please don't take my black card. We gotta talk about Obama. With his 8 years in office, 13 million more people were on food stamps, and 8 million more people were living in poverty. But it's okay because he's black and he understands us, right? And before COVID-19, 14 states had record low unemployment rates under the Republican president, Donald Trump. Facts tell truth. Before you blindly follow behind a crowd, do your own research. Formulate your own opinion, not off of what's popular, but off of what's right. The problem with our society is we don't take the time to truly educate ourselves, and we allow people to have power over our mind. I want to see an actual change in the black community, and that is not going to happen until we stop allowing ourselves to be controlled and manipulated. I will not be victimized by a political party that oppressed our ancestors and is trying to oppress us today.
If you're an investor or have even
Hi, I'm
thought
Grace. This is my walk away video. I'm walking away from the Democratic Party because I believe they elected Trump. I think they did this by manipulating identity politics to their advantage without realizing that the country was tired of identity politics. So when Trump became president, I had to know why. It disgusted me. I was in shock and denial. I had to know why, and I was actually curious, unlike a lot of my liberal friends who did the easy thing and assumed that half of the United States is racist. I thought that was possible, but I really did want to know why he was my president. So instead of radicalizing to the movement of he's not my president, I stepped back a little bit because I was curious. I started researching, I started listening to everything I could, and all the different news sources, even Fox News, I know. And listening to academics on YouTube, trying to figure out why this happened. And what I found was that people were tired of identity politics. I mean, they were tired of the left always talking about people's race or racism, always talking about people's sex or sexism, always talking about all of the ists, and as if it were happening everywhere all the time. It was just a buzz thing. It was like manipulating the latest trend to get your platform, essentially. Because what I started to see when I actually did research was things don't get better when the Democrats are in office. It's not like the ghettos are getting better. Quite the opposite ends up being true. So I started actually thinking about politics in general, and I started to, well, I don't think I ever had a great grasp on politics. I did the party line, you know. I'm a person who loves people, and I think people should have rights, so I'll vote Democrat. I mean, most of us are pretty stupid. And I think the Democratic Party knows that, and I think the Republican Party knows that too. But anyway, I learned a lot about politics. I learned a lot about government and economics, and then I realized, wow, I started seeing radicalizing, you know, leftists getting violent, organizing in groups that promote violence. Suddenly I realized, oh, maybe there isn't a good side and bad side. Maybe both sides can be corrupt. And, you know, I'm exhausted by identity politics too. I hate the idea that you have to be a woman. Why can't I be a human? You know, I am a woman, but it's not like I have to walk up to people and that's what I expect you to see. And, you know, liberals expect people to see, when you see someone, you have to see what color are they? What gender are they? Are they gay? I need to know. I mean, they might know more than I do, because there's this hierarchy of oppression. I mean, here's the Orthodox doctrine. There's a hierarchy of oppression. I need to know where you're at, because if I'm more oppressed than you are, then what I say holds more weight. If you're more oppressed than I am, I yield to what you say as true. If you think about it, it is ridiculous. Why can't we be human? Why can't we be Americans? Why can't we be those things first? Especially when it's related to politics and economics and business and government. And so I started to see that this boogeyman, alt-right, was smaller than people on the left made it out to be. And here's how I know. Because the second that a liberal questions identity politics or questions democratic policy, they're alt-right. They're being called alt-right, even though they're not. And then I started to realize the alt-right is this huge boogeyman that's actually way smaller. Like the actual racists, the actual bigots, they are a pretty small group, I think. Because if you don't conform to the orthodoxy, you're out. I lost a lot of friends. Most of my friends at this point of my life, I spent a couple decades in academia and liberal circles. I mean, I led the rally. I led the way. Let's just say that. I converted more people to feminism, you know. So the point is, you question one thing and suddenly your friends are radio silent and you're on the outside and they just cannot believe that you've turned into this racist, horrible human being. It's like, it makes you step back further and go, what the hell is happening? And it makes you not want to participate in it because you recognize that as the equal opposite of the alt-right. When Trump became president, liberals started to radicalize, and they're going on the extreme and turning into some kind of crazy alt-left I mean, organizing into violent groups, it's like totally unacceptable to me. So I still have liberal values, but I am not a Democrat. I might not even be a liberal. I might not even be willing to call myself a liberal anymore, based on what I'm seeing and based on how I'm being treated by liberals, frankly. And I'm starting to see if these violent liberals get into government, well, first, they're all for communism and socialism, so, well, there goes the United States of America. But second, I don't want those people having big government. I thought there might be a group of good people. If we had big government, it would be great, and maybe they'd bring in the utopia. No. You know, maybe I am a conservative. Maybe I don't want big government. So I'm starting to think those thoughts. You know, now that I'm freed from liberal friends who have no good argument because they're not talking, I can actually start thinking about those things. So I'm leaving the Democratic Party. Bye.
You need great marketing.
And that's always great to know that they're always leaving. They continue to radicalize and push everybody out who has something different to think about, even if it's one issue. If they don't think all the same, you don't belong. So these women are very welcome to join in this movement, and we can all enjoy this journey together. They're very welcome and will not be shamed or whatever. So I'm going to leave you with that, and I will continue to see what's going on with any updates, if possible, when they're available. And that clip that they just showed was just out of a spur of the moment, even though it was very short. It gave you something. Somebody said it was on 3 blocks away, but how does this person know? I mean, we have to go by what is being reported to us. So, don't blame me. God bless the President of the United States. Nobody won anything in D-Live. Sorry for that. God bless President. God bless the Vice President and the military and local authorities. God bless them. Please be safe. And first responders. God bless the Coast Guard, Border Patrol, and the men and women who work every day to heal the sick, and doctors and nurses, and especially, and God bless you. And I do appreciate all of you joining in. And I will be back tomorrow, or at least I will try to be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I have more stuff I did not get to, but due to time constriction, I can't get to that right now. So who knows? I may have a whole lot more stuff tomorrow. But God bless you, and have a wonderful tonight and a pleasant tomorrow. Yes, I took that from Saturday Night Live. God bless y'all.